On behalf of the Shalhevet program, I'm honored and humbled to welcome you to Rabbi Steinsaltz's first Yahrtzeit. This evening, we would like to touch upon, and hopefully also open our minds and hearts to two very important matters that were at the core of the rabbi's work. The first, strengthening Jewish identity and unity between all Jews. The second is the study of Torah, better iterated by the rabbis and the rabbi's motto, "Let my people know," allowing all Jews to connect to their very own heritage and take ownership over it. First, as we would do at many gatherings with the rabbi, let us sing together a nugun that maybe will help us open our hearts even a little bit. Thank you to our wonderful band, Hillel Aaron, Yedidia, Amichai, and Shmuel, thank you very much. We would like to begin with a video of the rabbi a few years ago when he was still a redhead, speaking at the World Conference for Jewish Communal Services about Jewish identity and our responsibility for it.
We have to meet each other. We have to find ways in the synagogue and out of the synagogue of meeting each other, of interacting with each other. To survive, we have to become better and better Jews, deeper, and in a way that is not just a matter of paying our debts to the past, to the dead parent, to the dead grandparents, and so on, by going to any kind of a Jewish event, but rather, in order to live, if I want to have any kind of future, we have to have education not just for children, but for adults as well. And the adults have to be more educated. We have, and in so many ways, a whole Jewish world, which is made of something that was once the worst kind of offense to give a person, which is Am Haaretz, ignoramus. Ignoramus, at least in the Jewish sense, and we have more and more of these. Some of them have some smattering of knowledge. Most of them don't even have that. So the greatest need is to put a great effort in building something that will stay. And building something which will stay is, we cannot build stones and any kind of, not palaces, nor castles, nor fortresses. We can do something which is far more enduring. We are not building pyramids, but we have to build people. This is what stays. We have to build people, more and more people. We can be moved from one country to another, but the people should stay. And so we have to build them. We have to give them more power, which is not just knowledge, but something which is as important as knowledge, which is involvement. Involvement, which means an attempt to be identified, an attempt to be unified with the fact of being Jewish, if I would put it in short. Each of us has dozens of points of identification. I may be so many years old, a male, a husband, a father. I'm working with a certain profession. I have certain degrees and so on. All these are ways in which person identify themselves as well. Where do I live? What language do I speak? And so on. But there is the point, one of the questions that people should ask themselves, not just others, is there is a point of identification which is, I am Jewish. If one makes a list of all these points in which one identifies himself, so the question is not only what is the list, which may contain, as I said, dozens of points, but there's something else, which is, what is the importance? What is the hierarchy? What is the order in which I put these things? Now, let me put it in general. If I want to survive as a Jew, this piece of identity, that I am Jewish, cannot be one of the last points in my list. If it is not one of the first points in my list, then I cannot do anything about it. It has to be, if you ask, who are you? So, one of the simple questions, I'm a human being, I'm a Jew. That is a point of identity. If that comes as an afterthought, if that comes as a matter of memory, that is not important. So, as I say, that is the importance is the identification, the involvement, and building for the future. And it is surely a very hard job, but it has to be done if we want to go on living. Thank you.
At this opportunity, we forgot at the beginning, but everyone is welcome to fill their glass at home and make a l'chaim with me together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen. L'chaim, l'chaim. I would like to invite former Knesset member and former Minister of Diaspora Affairs, Mrs. Omer Yankelevich, to say a few words.
Good evening, everyone. Arav Meni Even Israel, Mankal, the CEO of Merkaz Steinsaltz. Good evening, Arav Michael Falk, Rosh Yeshivat Steinsaltz, Mr. Natan Gesundheit, the CEO of Shalhevet, Mr. Natan Sharansky, honorable guests. Good evening, everyone. I would like to begin by telling you a short story from my personal perspective. Story about two young Jewish boys, Yoni from Petach Tikva and Josh from New York. Several years ago, they met on the Dealer Teen Fellow program. My daughter also was part of the Dealer program. Each of them comes from a totally different background. Yoni from a religious family, Josh from a secular one. At the beginning of their friendship, each one's connections to the Talmud was entirely, completely different. For several years, they kept in touch as Yoni went to study in yeshiva, and there he discovered his deep desire to study Talmud. Instead of studying alone, he kept always contact with Yoni. Yoni kept hearing from Josh about his desire to find his Jewish roots, to reconnect to his tradition. So Yoni and Josh began a chavruta and studied Talmud together through the years. At the same time, COVID-19 entered our lives and changed our routine completely. But it hit our brothers and sisters abroad much harder. As you know, Jewish community centers around the world closed down. Anti-Semitism rose to alarming levels, and especially in both Israel and the diaspora, we have had difficulty maintaining our Jewish way of life as a community. There is still one good thing that came out of COVID. It's hard to say, but I think that you will agree with me, and that is the ability to meet people through Zoom. And so over the last year, Yoni from Petach Tikva and Josh from New York have been studying Talmud together via video chat, and they studied the Talmud of Rabbi Steinsaltz. And for me, it is a very, very special moment to be here today. And when we mark the Rabbi's Yahrtzeit today, we are speaking about his great initiative. Rabbi Steinsaltz was the first one to make the Talmud accessible to the masses. Who knows how many hundreds of thousands of Jews around the world for whom Talmud was first mountain too high to climb, managed to finish the Talmud thanks to him. And above all, Rabbi Steinsaltz was all about connecting people, as Josh and Yoni and all of us, connecting people between world Jewry. His Talmud connected people from Israel, from United States, from Australia, from England, you name it, from many countries around the world. And his books were translated to 13 languages. Millions of copies were sold worldwide. It is the connection to books that makes us, the Jewish people, unique. Am HaSefer that connected to the books. And when you look at our history compared to other nations, you can see the difference. While the Greek nation sanctified the physical, the body, and founded the Olympic Games, we made sure to preserve the spiritual while learning about the oral law, often at the cost of their lives. The Jewish people strove to preserve their tradition as the people of the book who invest in intellect and enhance their spirituality. A nation that sanctifies the notion that the Talmud is accessible to all. Even in the most difficult times, in the most horrible situations, Jews made every effort to endear even one page from the Talmud, just to keep their spirit alive. This high admiration we kept for the oral law is what kept us alive throughout the years. You know, even my own childhood witnessed this notion with my own eyes. My parents, who came to Israel from the Soviet Union, decided to go back to the former Soviet Union on a mission, on a shlichut, to bring some of the Jewish communities back to their roots. They decided to give something from themselves to the Jewish people in a very, very complicated and challenging times behind the Iron Curtain with many difficulties. But we saw the great desire for Jewish learning. It was a dark and challenging place, but we managed to bring some light through learning. And I was privileged to continue this journey and this purpose as I served as the Minister of Diaspora Affairs. And we have held hundreds of Zoom meetings in the last few months, year and a half. And we had the meetings with communities around the world where we saw the great desire for connections, for cooperations, for talking, connecting, and the desire to take part, to study together, to reconnect with the Jewish family, with our Jewish family. And Baruch Hashem, we were able to complete our Common Destiny project. I don't know if you heard about it, but it's worth it to hear about it, along with Genesis Foundation. For a year, hundreds of Jewish opinion leaders from all over the Jewish world engaged in joint study to produce a declaration that would establish the principles of the common future for us as a people, as a nation. It was a very exciting experience that taught me how shared learning can produce the connection between us. Even though it was the year of COVID-19, we connect with each other. We created friendships, we created connections and chavrutot between schools in Israel and schools in the Jewish world, between communities, between people. In the end, it's all about people, as you know. We learned how each one of us has something to bring to the table. This is why I am excited and moved to be here on this important day. Your initiative is extremely important for the connection between world Jewry. There are 70 phases to the Torah. Anyone can innovate and bring new interpretations to context and combined learning. This is the beauty of the diversity of our Jewish world. And this is part of the beauty of the diversity, you know. And I hope and pray that the vital message will reach out to the Jewish people, expressing all of us that no matter their level of observance, no matter their location, all of us can connect to each other and through learning to make the connection. So I wish the participants here and the students and rabbis of the Tkoa Yeshiva to continue your joint study. Bring your friends, bring your family, because through learning, we can grow as a nation. This joint study is the fulfillment of Rabbi Steinsaltz Zichrono Livracha vision. The connection between Josh and Yoni is exactly what he dreamed of. So Be'ezrat Hashem, we will continue to learn together. We will continue to learn from each other and be attentive to one another. So thank you for the opportunity to be here, and thank you, and may the memory of Rabbi Steinsaltz be blessing for all of us. Yehi zichro baruch, and toda rabba.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Yankelevich, for your inspirational words.
ופרוס חביבי עליי, ופרוס חביבי עליי את סוכת שלומך. יגאל עיניי, ופרוס חביבי עליי, ופרוס חביבי עליי את סוכת שלומך. Veni
We would like to show another video of the rabbi speaking at the World Conference of Jewish Communal Services, this time it's for real, about Jewish identity and our responsibility for it.
There are two kinds of people, and there are two kinds of temptations. Some people can be tempted when you tell them you have a soft bed to lie upon. And some people are tempted. That's a great temptation for them. And some people are tempted when you tell them there is a terribly high mountain to climb. And they are rushing and they are climbing it. Now I would say, through the generations, natural selection, internal selection, we were the people that wanted to climb mountains. The people that found their enjoyment in the challenge, that found the thing that drives them in being more and doing more and becoming higher, better, whatever it is. And when you deprive our people of that, when you try to fool them or to lull them into saying that, okay, you can be a nice Jew without doing anything. You can be a learned Jew without knowing anything. You can be a Jewish leader with a combination of both of these things, neither knowing, not doing anything. Now, when you have all this, you think that you get the nicest and the best. No, this temptation is not only a temporary one. It doesn't really work for our people. What we need is far more. Some time ago, and I'm surely not not good at raising money. I met with an American millionaire, and we had a nice talk. And he rather liked. I could have asked at the time, clearly, for $100,000. I think that he would sign a check. And I needed it. But I told him, which was a great mistake seemingly, I told him, see, what I really want is your soul. Then if I have it, I'll get also your money. When it comes, first of all, to Jewish learning, there is a minimum limit of Jewish learning that should be demanded of everybody, below which it is useless. And that lowest limit is quite high. This is the limit in which a person has enough knowledge that he can go on and study for himself. It is surely not a very low level, but that is a minimum limit. When you don't have it, it is not enough. It is not enough. And when you think that hearing a lecture here and there, even a nice lecture by a good lecturer, will do anything, it is a mistake. It is not sufficient in itself. More than that, it doesn't satisfy the person that really wants more. So it wants more of this. Later, there is the personal involvement. The personal involvement, which is, I spoke so many times to American rabbis, telling them, advising them to abolish the sermons. They would agree, I'm afraid.
but not because the sermons are so very bad. You know they are bad enough, but that's not the point. Because the whole build-up of a passive community is a basic mistake for Jews. Building a passive community is a basic mistake. We shouldn't allow it. We shouldn't allow passive Jews. It is not good for the community. It is not good for the people. And more than that, it is not good for them. They are pining even though they don't know why. They want more and they need it. And they need to be driven and they need to be I don't know what ways you can do it. You have to seduce them into Jewishness. You have to rape them into Jewishness. You have to do whatever you can, but push them and push hard. And as I'm saying, that will have a result. And more than that, let me just finish with that. See, any attempt for trying to create minimal definitions of Jewishness is self-defeating. It's self-defeating. It works for a very short time. It works for one generation, perhaps. It doesn't work further on. It doesn't work, and it doesn't have that only thing that we have as being Jewish. I would say, if you wanted, this holy madness of being, of doing something, of being something extraordinary. We are not satisfied with minimum definitions. And when you try to give minimum definitions, it is self-defeating in itself. When you try to make it easy, smooth and easy, you are just fighting against the very nature of the people.
Unfortunately, Mr. Sharansky was tested positive for COVID just before this evening and couldn't join us. He's feeling well, Baruch Hashem, but he couldn't come and join us here tonight. Next, I would like to have a small interview with Rabbi Menachem Meni Even Israel, Rabbi's middle son, who's been the CEO of the Steinsaltz Center since his father called him in about 16 years ago. Under Rabbi Meni's leadership, the center has completed the Steinsaltz Talmud in Hebrew and English, the Steinsaltz Tanakh, the Bible, the Steinsaltz Maimonides, the Steinsaltz Mishnah, and many other books and projects. Latest, the Steinsaltz app. So, Rabbi Meni, I would like to first start with a personal question of what was it like growing up with such a figure as your father, who's been so influential on the Jewish world, the entire world, as we all know, but how was that as a son?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you joining us in this commemorative night for my father's first Yahrtzeit. How was it? It was very interesting as a child. From a very young age, I knew that my father is different. He's not a regular father. This is not your typical father is going to play, I don't know, baseball. I mean, even though it's Israeli, he will not play with me baseball. Very young age, we realize is unique and different. Also, I don't know if people know, but my father suffered from a goucher disease. And for many years, till about I was 8 or 9, my father was, maybe a little younger, my father was carrying a stomach, almost like a pregnant lady. And it was very bizarre, because every time a friend came over, you had a conversation about, what is this? It was something that was very unique for people. So it was very interesting to live there. I mentioned many times before, my father took a personal interest in me. I think when he got the first report card that report card says something in this language of, the child has a great potential. However, his reading abilities are not as high as we anticipated and expected. My father took it very personally, so he spent every Friday night with me reading and learning the parsha of the week. Now, this was a hard thing. I mean, I really had a hard time. I mean, today probably I'll be diagnosed with a list of AD or something. But it was very, very pressuring. But I remember when I actually graduated with this, I actually knew how to read the Chumash. It was a very exciting time with me. I thought, that's it, I'm done. Now I can do it every Friday night. I can go home. That's it, I can go play with my friends. I said, no. Now we're going to read Rashi together. And then he taught me the key element of living with Rabbi Steinsaltz at home. You must absolutely, continuously ask questions. Now, my father also had attached to it the conundrum that he not always give you an answer. You can ask the question, you probably not always going to get an answer. I think he promised my sister he'll give her an answer for something, never did. There's some things he hold the old Polish view. It's a need-to-know basis, and you don't need to know. And some of those things were very peculiar in his life. And to be with him was very interesting. Sometimes you knew that when he gets to a certain situation, get in certain places, he has a different reaction to different people. His most unique ability, and again, something we all need to learn from, he was truly humble. And he had no problem to speak to the youngest, to the oldest. And he tried to really respect them, again, on a personal level. It was different when he had to be a speaker and so on and so on, but as a personal level, it was unbelievable. I remember children coming to him and bothering him, so to speak, in the shul, in the synagogue, when it was almost holy. It was almost really sanctum concept, right? My father prayer was a unique thing. He prayed for 2-3 hours straight. It was very clear that he's praying, and a kid could come in and bother him, he wouldn't mind. That was a very unique thing. You learn from it. You learn something that is the importance. You have to care about everybody.
I wanted to ask you another personal question, if I can. I think this is something we feel many times. After one's passing, suddenly arises all these questions that we wanted to ask and never did. Things that we wanted to say and never said. Can you share with us something like that? Maybe a question you always wanted to ask him, or something that you never really got an answer to?
Well, sadly enough, no. Not because I think I asked him all the questions that were really important for me, for my life. And again, he did not give me the answers I want, or sometimes ignore them. One of the questions I asked him, which I remember vividly, I came to his office. It was one of our weekly review of what I do and what we need to do for the center. And asked him, I never knew what you did but with the Rebbe. I heard many times you met the Lubavitcher Rebbe, you did the Lubavitcher Rebbe. I had a whole story about it. And I asked him, so what happened there? I mean, I know, at least what he said many times, that he was with the Rebbe many hours. So I asked him, tell me. So he said, no. Again, I think the man, as a father, but also as my boss, has and had a very clear agenda, very clear perspective, where you want to go, what's need to be done. I really feel that, again, obviously, the more we go, the more as we all know, the Rabbi has a huge archive. We just really now start tapping in it. And we have things from his beginning of his career, beginning of his life, not even career, when he was still young man, so to speak, when he was involved with Shalhevet, the original Shalhevet, and publishing this magazine called Reshafim, and later on Shefa, and other things. He had certain things that he did that we never knew about it, which is very impressive to ask. I mean, if I had opportunity, if I would know this archive exists and I can ask him the question, maybe. But in general, I feel very content with it.
This leads me to my last question, which is, you as CEO of the Steinsaltz Center, I mean, we all know about the Talmud and the many, many books, and we know there are more books to come. But what would you say the rabbi, what does he want from us? What are the next goals? What would be the next goals of the rabbi, aside from the books? I know you're the book expert, but
Sure. I think the rabbi vision is really, it's a double-sided coin. He wanted the knowledge, not of his knowledge, but knowledge in general, the Jewish people, to become available, to become accessible, to become reachable by everybody. And two, he wanted to have people who believe in this and become, better students, greater students, but really enablers to move his agenda. I believe strongly, and again, we have our own, if I divide what we do quickly, if I may, we have the books, and they really will be published until the end of time. Really, we're talking about hundreds of books that we can continue publishing, and this without going into anthologies and remaking them, just what we have. Then we have, the Shiva in Tekoa, and I think this project, the Shalhevet project, is outstanding. This is exactly what the rabbi wanted, and we encouraging it to grow, and I think the mission for everybody here, if I talk about this specific moment, is to find another chavruta. The goal is to duplicate what we have, to double it, and maybe triple it or quadruple it in the near future. This is part of the agenda. This is the way you make it one student to make another one. The third thing we're doing, of course, is technology. As you mentioned, we do the app. The app is now in beta. You can download it in the regular stores under Steinsaltz. It's just a beta. It's moving forward. But all of this, as Mordechai, as all of this is exactly what, I don't want to quote him, said, Kol ze inenu shaveli. All of this is not important for me. Really what my father wanted is that people will care. I can publish books from here till the end of time, literally. And I can put more stuff in the material, and I can have more chavrutas. But people need to care. And to do it properly, that was the biggest challenge. From beginning of time, what the rabbi did was to make the text available, to make his speeches available. He used to travel, as we all know, and I'm sure the follower speakers will speak about it, to all corners of the universe, literally. And sometimes he met 2 people. Some drove 8 hours to meet 2 people, and that was it. But the purpose was to inflame them, which is really fitting to the word, the movement we have here, Shalhevet, which means a flame. And that was the purpose, to make the flame burning, and not just burning, but rekindling the light of everybody.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Meniev in Israel. Next, we would like to invite a few students, friends of the rabbi who enjoyed a long relationship with him. First being Michael Alush, who's a world-renowned engineer for aerodynamics, and who's translated many of the books into French, and who's been working with the rabbi for many years. Michael, please.
I'd like first, and if you allow me, to put the context of my connection with Rav Adin. And I know that everybody has got some kind of personal connections and feel a one-to-one connection. So my connection with Rabbi Adin is first and foremost a connection of master and teacher, a connection of Rav and Talmid. But I would like to add that the connection was also kind of family connections. I mean, since we've been in Israel, Rav Adin was a sandak of my sons, of my grandsons, even called one of my daughters her Nerda, a granddaughter, and he was a Mesader Kiddushin of all my kings. So that's a way of kind of family connection as well. And may I add also kind of mystical connections. We discover at the very beginning that my great-great-grandfather, Rabbi Eliyahu Alush from Algeria, printed a book called Eretz Tzvi, and this book has been written by the father of Rabbi Simcha Buna Mibshisra, which is also a great-great-grandfather of Rav Adin. So that's kind of putting the things in context. I don't want to be too much emotional, but I would like to say that I had 3 similar griefs in my life, where I felt perhaps similar pains. Once when my father passed away, secondly when the Lubavitcher Rebbe passed away, and third when Rav Adin passed away. But I'd like to say that in these three cases, it was also like a springboard to continue and make the link even stronger. I feel that Rav Adin is still present day after day, all this year, and Bezrat Hashem, it will be like that and on an endless manner, and because his teaching are very much alive. So let me tell you how this connection started. I would even dare some kind of love story. We were living in Toulouse, France, and Rav Adin came to make a lecture on an unexpected subject, the mystics of Maimonides. So at the end of the conference, I went to him and I asked him very innocently if he intends to make a commentary of the Zohar the way he does it for the Talmud. And with well-known humor, he answered me that he would like to, but Hashem will have to give him at least another 120 years. But he didn't stop his answers there. And he said, you know what? There is a small book in English which has just been printed, the 13 Petaled Rose, which provide and describe basic concepts of Chassidut and Kabbalah. And I'd advise you to read this book. So when I found these books a bit later, and I read the first sentence, which I still have in mind, our physical world is only a part of a system of vast worlds, other worlds of spiritual dimensions. I really felt in love with this book. I read through until the end. And when I finished it, I said to myself, so what do I do now? Should I put this book back to the bookshelf? And I said, no, I want to stay with the book. And therefore, I took the initiative of translating the book day after day before I go to my work early in the morning. And that's the way after 1 year, I finished the translations. I was not too sure that the book will be printed and edited in France, but I say to myself, if at least one Jew, if it can help one Jew or another Jew, then Dayenu. But I met Rabbi Rav Adin 1 year after. By the way, he brought me another book, Teshuvah, and the book would be published 1 year after. So it became for me a kind of drug. Since then, I've not stopped, and I continue, Bezrat Hashem, to translate his book in French. But I have to say that there's many wonders about these books, and I'm sure some of you know them, many stories. But one little story which I was witnessing, I had someday a couple invited in our home in Yerushalayim. And when the husband came to my home and he saw the book in French, he said, wow, this is a book I started to make Teshuvah. But that's one point. The second point is I was telling this story once I was in Canada for my work in a Shabbat table. And I don't know why I told this very story. There was a guy with a hat and a bird beside me. He was crying. He told me, you know what? I get converted with this book. So you could see that this is, and I will come back to that later, this is really what Rav Adin was looking for, that his book will touch somebody. And I think he managed to do that. So we made Aliyah, and the link become closer and closer. And I can say that I could verify the very definition he gave for what is a great man. And he said once that a great man is a man that when you get closer to him, you still admiring him. And I think this is so true, at least in my case. And by the way, I could see while in Israel that how he could talk the same manner and the same serious way to a kid as well as to a Nobel Prize of physics. And he was, I would say, even obsessed to find the common language with him. And I talk about kids. Let me tell you about the first encounter of my son. I know there are some people of his community tonight. And for some reason, and he's a rabbi of this community of Arizona, and for some reason, I took him at this lecture of the mystic on the Maimonides. He was 7 years old. So, but at the end of the lecture, he had also a question, very interesting questions. You know, there is a famous stories about the way to read the name of Hashem. You have to have two Yud, one beside the other. But if one is above the other, the story tells you it cannot be Hashem. Hashem can only be there when you have two exact same letters. So his question was very interesting because he say, if so, that should be the same vowels also besides beneath the Yud. And Rabbi Adin took that very seriously, and he told me to translate him. You should tell him that normally there should be no vowels, and he's right, your son. It should be exactly the same. So really, I saw the way he wanted really to connect with people by talking their language. And I have myself an interesting experience because he wanted people to use their competencies, their expertise, and to use this expertise in the service of conveying Jewish messages. And I was once invited again in Toulouse for the Yahrtzeit of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And I went to him for getting an advice. My field is the field of unmanned aircraft system, of drones. And without hesitating 1 second, he told me, you should tell them that the Chabad movement is like a drone, like an unmanned aircraft systems. Why? Because the chief engineer, which is the Rebbe, has defined the flight plan. It has defined what should be the destination, which is the Geula Shelema. And now everybody has to act and fly along the path in order to reach the destination. And of course, like in the case of a drone, you know, there is a remote pilot monitoring the flight. The Rebbe, from wherever he is also monitoring the flight. So just to conclude, I once was in Paris with Rabbi Adin. He was interviewed with by a lot of journalists, and he said something very interesting. He said, I don't care how many books will be sold of my books. What I care is that my book will touch somebody, at least one Jew, and changing his life. So it is perfectly fitting with a story that once a lady was meeting and saw Rabbi Steinsaltz in the street, and she stopped him and he said, wow, Rabbi Steinsaltz, you can't imagine how I am inspired with your books. And Rabbi Adin replied immediately, inspired? But inspired to do what? So let me conclude with that. We're in the evening of Shalhevet, and I'm sure that everybody has been inspired by his teaching, by his books. But I would like to suggest for this first Yahrtzeit that we present a gift to Rabbi Adin. This gift would be not only that we are inspired by his book, but we do something with that. And it's enough to do a small act of kindness, joining Jewish learning like Shalhevet is suggesting. And, you know, as he said, often hundreds, thousands of small acts even could shake the world and bring us about to the Geula Shelema. שיהיה ככה בקרוב, and זכות רב הדין יגן עלינו ועל כל ישראל. לחיים.
לחיים.
Thank you so much, Michael Alush. Next, I would like to invite Anna Gulko, the former chess champion of both Soviet Union and the US. She is the only woman chess grandmaster who's Orthodox Jewish. After leaving Soviet Union in '86, Anna and her husband lived in the US for 33 years and made Aliyah 2 years ago. Anna, please.
Shalom, and thank you for inviting me to this meeting. And it's a great privilege for me to talk about Rav Steinsaltz. I met him probably about 15 years ago, and it was in Manhattan. Our friends organized a meeting for Russian Jews. And I and my husband, we started to become what is called Chozer B'Tshuva. At that time, life seemed to me, religious life seemed to be like black and white, you know, and I had, as I understand now, quite extreme views on life, on religious life, and on observance of mitzvot, and I was really surprised that at that meeting, where there were clearly non-religious people as well, Rabbi Steinsaltz was so much interested in everyone, and he wanted to hear personal stories, and he really cared about everyone, not just who was religious or not religious. And it was amazing to me how he could combine such extreme qualities, being a giant in scholarship, being a giant as a mensch, and at the same time to be so down to earth, so to be so personal, to care and love about every person. And because of this unique combination, I felt that I can trust him. I can trust him completely. And it was also amazing that when I had a privilege of meeting with Rabbi Steinsaltz when he would come to Manhattan, that I saw that he saw sort of exactly what's going on in my head. And sometimes he answered the questions that I didn't even before I asked them specifically. And also he had such an exquisite sense of humor. And because both my husband and I, we are chess players, he sometimes made jokes, somewhat personal jokes about chess. For example, once he said that a chess game is, that Jewish family is like a chess. That like in chess, there is a queen and a king. And queen, she is very strong, she is very powerful, she can go far. But it's actually king who is the most important in the chess game. And even though he's not as powerful, but he's the most important. And it was a great lesson for me about family life. And then also I remember once I asked him about what is actually free will, in which aspects of our life we can have we do have a free will. And Raf answered me in his manner that was sort of both simple, but at the same time very deep. He said, it's better to believe in having free will, because otherwise what we say, what we think, what we do is not that much meaningful. So that we better think that our behavior is completely our free will. And he said also that our destiny and free will are intertwined, and Hashem gives us a formula of our life with certain parameters, and this can be considered a destiny, but we put in a sign plus or minus, and this is our free will. And again, his answers were both simple but so deep, and because of that, I felt that my relationship with Hashem became also deeper and much more personal, because Rabbi Steinsaltz was sort of an ideal representative of Hashem enterprise. And another personal thing that I would like to tell is that after many years of work on Wall Street, I finally retired when I could not keep my job any longer, and we came to Jerusalem, and we met with Rav Steinsaltz, and I was so happy that we finally made Aliyah, and I entered his study room with a huge smile, and Rav looked at me and said, "Oh, so you came to have a good life." And this made this was like a cold shower on me, you know, because I realized that retirement doesn't mean anything. It was just sort of a new stage in life, but life is very demanding, and Hashem is very demanding, and we should continue doing our best. So of course I miss Rabbi very much, and Zachron Tzadik Livracha.
Thank you, Anna. L'chaim.
L'chaim, l'chaim. We would like to ask everyone who can to open their cameras so we can feel like we're all together, making a l'chaim, hearing each other. Thank you so much, Anna. I would like to invite Mrs. Gaia Bernstein, who's translated many of the rabbi's books and who's working on a new book that's about to come out. Please, Mrs.
It's a privilege to be here. I am the Chvod Harav Meni, Harav Micha Falk, Ule'ilui Nishmat Harav Adin Even Yisrael Steinsaltz. I am very grateful to be able to share with you 3 short paragraphs from the book that is currently being translated from Hebrew into English. It is about to be released or just released in Hebrew in Israel. And I will not speak. These are the Rav's words translated into English. The first is something I've heard him talk about, and this is a condensed version of something that I'm sure everybody who knows the Rav's thinking is aware of. That we are part angel, part beast, and we have to strive to be our best selves. A human being is a creature comprised of angel and beast, body and soul, intellect and feeling, good and evil. None of these qualities alone define a person. What makes one human is the mix. We are complex creatures, and though the angelic part of a person is unquestionably superior, we shouldn't conclude that man's role in life is to be a total angel. Had God wanted people to be angels, he could have created more angels. God created us as human beings, but we are forbidden to remain satisfied with our inner beast. It is incumbent on every human being to strive to elevate his soul to reach higher and higher levels, each in his own unique way. The next paragraph answers the question of how to live, and I like to think of it as the Rav's marching orders. The ideal human way to live, the ideal Jewish way to live, is to live life fully. What this means is to live every stage of life as it is, and not to behave as if life begins in the future, not to see youth as a mere planning stage for adulthood, not to spend old age nostalgic for the past, not to diminish the significance of the present, not to waste the preciousness of the here and now. Life is to be lived fully now, when the joy and the gift of being alive is close and real and palpable. Fulfillment, if it's at all possible, can be found in every stage of life. And if there is a need to repair aspects of one's life, this also remains true at every stage. And lastly, this is the Rav speaking about the definition of a great man. When we celebrate the Yahrtzeit of a great man, we are essentially acknowledging that he contributed to the world by the very nature of the fact that he was alive. He was known as a person who lived in the presence of the Holy One, blessed be he, every day of his life. Others may achieve this lofty goal for a portion of their lives, with the remainder being lost time. But for a person of greatness, every day is lived in the presence of God. Yehi zichro baruch. L'chaim.
Chaim. Thank you so much, Gaia.
Next, I would like to invite Natan Gesundheit, who's spearheaded the Shalhevet program together with Rabbi Michal Falk, and has created this wonderful program.
Thank you, Amitai. It's just before we're going to see a small video of what happened with Shalhevet in the past year. I wanted just to say, also with the 2 videos that we saw of Rabbi Steinsaltz, it's amazing to see how much he believed in us. He really believed that we can change ourselves and direct ourselves to very high goals. And through Shalhevet, in the past year, almost a year, of learning Torah, Israelis and people from abroad, especially from the USA together, we've heard so many stories, powerful stories, about the connection that was created, and about the Torah that was learned, that was really new for both sides, both for the Israeli side and for the American side, for the Jews from abroad. So first of all, I want to thank all Shalhevet participants on being part of this amazing, amazing program, dedicating once a week a time to study, shoving all the very pressing things of our lives aside for an hour of learning. That's amazing. And hopefully we will continue these chavrutas. You will continue your chavrutas for a long time. And I want to invite anybody who's here that hasn't joined Shalhevet yet, do yourselves a favor. Join Shalhevet. I believe it really embodies one of the biggest things that Rabbi Steinsaltz has gave us, the yearn to learn and the strive to know more and to connect to other Jews. And if anybody needs the information, you can see on the chat on Zoom all the links that you need to join Shalhevet. So here's the video.
When was the last time you studied Torah? I mean actually studied. Actively. We at the Shalhevet Learning Program want to offer you a one-on-one learning of a Jewish topic of your choice with an Israeli study partner. Discover new worlds of connection. Connection to Israel and connection to the worlds of Jewish learning.
The Torah was given as an inheritance to the community of Israel. And as my inheritance, I have a share in it. If you are Jewish, it means that you are studying.
So, would you like us to help you find a study partner in Israel who you can learn with in your own time by Zoom? Here are 3 ground rules. Number 1, come as you are. No matter who you are, what your background is, or what community you belong to, just be yourself. Number 2, don't be shy. Your point of view is extremely valuable. This is the opportunity for you to get involved in your learning. Number 3, connect with your chavruta. A deep connection with your partner is the gate to a deep connection with Jewish learning.
When I'm learning Torah, I am doing something of a meeting of minds. It is not only an individual act, it's also in a communal way of being connected.
After a successful first year, with more than 70 chavrutot actively learning together, we invite you to join this wave of Jewish learning.
Even though we're thousands of miles away, Zoom brings us together.
יהודי שיושב ביבשת אחרת, הלימוד הזה הוא מחבר כל מיני קצוות ומקבל איזשהו עומק חדש.
We're able to engage in our own dialogue and bring our own experiences to the text.
A sense of connectedness to our traditions and traditional learning.
A better connection with my inner self, and mostly I have a better connection with my soul.
נוצרה חברות אמיתית, אנחנו שתינו נהנות לספר אחת לשנייה על החיים שלנו, על המשפחה, על הילדים.
I've learned a lot of Torah. My skills have gotten better also, but I also have made a friend.
Shalhevet, Jewish learning, breaking borders. In order to join or to get more information, click on the link below. You can also look us up on Facebook or search Shalhevet Steinsaltz on Google.
Last, but certainly not least, I would like to invite Rabbi Michal Falk, head of the Steinsaltz Tekoa Yeshiva, and who spearheaded the Shalhevet program together with Natan Gesundheit. Rabbi Michal, please.
L'chaim. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, all the participants of Shalhevet, all those who joined us this evening and aren't participants yet, but soon will be. L'chaim. There is a Hasidic legend of a very brilliant, great tzaddik that was always busy in so many important issues of the Jewish world and of the worldwide. He was always busy with books and projects around the world. But the legend goes on and says that this great man was always busy going around the world and meeting different Jews from all over the globus. It can be 100, 1,000, 10,000, but also just one sweet Jew in some who knows where. But that great man had the time and effort to go and have that personal conversation. This great man in the Hasidic legend also had his own yeshiva with his own students. And over there he would put in enormous effort, enormous time, and he would sit and study one-on-one classes. He would have Farbrengens. He was busy talking to their hearts, to their souls. With all of his big projects and with all of the really tough issues and challenges that the world was going through, this great man put his energy and time also with his students. That Hasidic legend is about our Rabbi Steinsaltz. And those students of that Hasidic legend are all of us here today that joined the first Yahrtzeit. We tend to sometimes forget and be busy on the day-to-day errands and issues that we're always busy with. But we were part of a Hasidic legend. It was a real legend. We had a very special, great man that was so close and caring to all of us. I remember so many times at the end of a long night, it was almost light out, that the rabbi would sit in the Steinsaltz yeshiva and he would talk to us about all kinds of things, from down on earth and up on heaven. But always he would end and remind us of what the great Kotzker Rebbe, the Rebbe from Kotsk, would say about what we say in the prayer every morning, Habocher b'shirei zimra. The Kotzker would say that don't read the word shirei as songs, the one who chose the songs and praises. But we should read and understand the word shirei as shiraim, that is left at the end. What are we left with? And he would remind us that at the end, after all of these hours that we were sitting together and were uplifted and our hearts were opened, what are we left with? I think the rabbi really meant it. Now that we're here at the first Yahrtzeit, I think this is the real test that we have. Whether the Shirei Zimra, what are we left with? In another occasion, the rabbi told us that he's not interested in his books, as Rabbi Meni mentioned, and as others over here mentioned. The real question is if we're able to ignite that flame. If that flame is lit, he did what he intentioned to do. If that flame is lit, so that flame will continue on and light another flame. I think one of the reasons we started Leilui Nishmat in memory of our dear Rabbi Steinsaltz, the Shalhevet program, was to help all of us over here light that flame together and help other people light that flame for each other. So please, don't hesitate. It can be through Shalhevet. It can be through something personal. Each one of us has that flame that he could light by himself, light for his family, light for his community. Those of us that are already part of the Shalhevet community, please help us to make it even a bigger flame. And please, don't be bashful. Offer it to all of those that we never know what kind of an impact that can have on us and on them. So l'chaim, and thank you so much. We were so lucky to be part of this legend, to be part of this story that I'm sure will be a story, a real true Hasidic legend for many more years. Let's make it a bigger flame and have this light continue on. L'chaim.
L'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim.
Ay lay 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 I'm taking them bum bum bum, I'm taking them ba da 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 da. בונה ביס המקדש במהרה בימינו ותן חלקנו בתורתך שיבנה בית 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 המקדש במהרה בימינו ותן
בתורתך שיבנה בית המקדש במהרה בימינו ותן חלקנו בתורתך המקדש אוי במהרו ביומנו וסן חלקנו בסוהר הזכו שיבנה בית המקדש במהרו ביומנו וסן חלקנו בסוהר
everyone from near and from far. May we continue to light and ignite ourselves and many, many others. Thank you.